So there should be no headache. Okay. Next question. When you look at the site of the punctured site and you notice that there's redness, there's swelling. So what do you think is happening to this patient? There is redness, there is swellings. What do you think is happening to this patient?
There's infection going on.
Huh? Specifically, there is a what? Redness and swelling around the punctured site. It means there is infection. Perfect. When you see clear drainage, that means there is CSF leakage. So they will aspirate amounts of this fluid. So that means one of the goals after the procedure is to replace the fluid, CSF replacement. How? By drinking fluids, of course, okay? If there's no contraindications, so just encourage fluids if there are no contraindications. Okay, that's for the lumbar puncture. Next, CT scan. So like what I've said, CT scan is for different systems, not only in the neurologic, but even in the GI, you will encounter CT scan. So let's go by the principles. Okay, CT scan can be done with or without the dye. Will they ask me about them, Mr. Arado? No, you won't. Will they ask me, Mr. Arado, about the purpose of CT scan? Like, is this for stroke, for neck injury? They will not ask you about it. That's not how they will ask you because that's too objective. Okay. So what are the focus of questioning about the CT scan, Mr. Arado? Based from my students, experience, they're gonna be asked, they were asked about if this procedure is done with the dye. So you have to assess for possible what? Allergies. Allergies to what? Allergies to seafood. Or, what is it again? Sorry?
Iodine.
Iodine. That's the most common question that you may encounter. What about for the instruction you will give to your patient? You just have to lie still and flat, and that's it. Another that I encountered in a lot of practice question is they are asking if the CT scan is invasive. Is it invasive, yes or no? What do you think?
No.
It is not invasive, of course, okay? The only invasive aspects here is when the patient will receive what? The dye. And that's it. Now, for the post-procedure, there are a lot of questions in NCLEX in the post-procedure, okay? And I will tell you what are those NCLEX concepts on the post-procedure. Number one of the most important health teaching is hydration. Why do you think so? Why you will tell the patient to increase fluid intake? Why?
Flush out the dye.
Perfect, to flush it out. Follow-up question. Why do you think the patient needs to flush them out? Why? Because what? This dye is a what?
It's very damaging to the kidneys, I think.
It is nephrotoxic, that is correct. This dye is nephrotoxic, that if it will stay in the blood, it will cause acute renal failure. Acute renal failure. So it needs to be flushed out by hydration. And on the same concept, nurses, there was a question that came out as well about the CT scan with the dye. The question was, which among the following laboratory tests is important for the doctor, for the nurse to evaluate, or for the doctor to evaluate before injecting the dye? And the answer was serum creatinine. Okay, creatinine, BUN and creatinine. Why? Because if the BUN creatinine is high, so that means there is a possible damage in the kidneys, and that patient is not a good candidate for the administration of the dye because it can all the more cause insults and damage into the kidneys. So creatinine and BUN, because the dye is nephrotoxic. Another concept that came out is after you have administered the dye, you have to check the pulse distal to the site of injection. When I say distal, that is the pulse after the site of injection. Okay, the pulse that is closer to the site of injection. Like for example, if the dye was injected somewhere right here on your forearm, like for example, look at me, if the dye was injected here, so the pulse you should be checking is the brachial or the radial. So when you say distal pulse, these are pulse that are closer to the site of injection, but it's like should be after, okay, the site, or below the site of injection. That's what she meant by distal pulse. All right. Okay. Any question before I proceed? You're good? Okay.
And Mr. Arado,
Yes.
I've read from our lesson that why we asked if the patient is taking metformin
Yes.
before giving the iodine.
Yes, that is correct. So that's one of the most common question as well. Why? Okay, the byproduct of metformin is lactic acid. Okay, the byproduct of metformin is lactic acid production. If the patient has an acute renal failure because of the damage of this dye, so that means the kidney will not be able to flush it out. And lactic acid is toxic. It's toxic to the blood. So it is not good to stay in the blood. It needs to be cleared out. Do you understand? So that's why they are saying that you have to withhold, metformin, before administering the dye because of the possibility that this dye may cause damage into the kidneys. And if it happened that this dye damaged the kidneys and you've taken metformin, that means this lactic acid will accumulate in the blood, which will cause more damage in the organs. Because lactic acid can damage organs. Okay.
Thank you.
That's very popular, right? That's very popular question.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Now another one is MRI. Okay. Next, another same concept. It's non-invasive. Okay. Mr. Arado, will I be asked about this description of tissues, tumor? Do I need to remember that? No, it's non-NCLEX. Don't waste your time. Okay. The most common question in MRI are the contraindications. Trust me. The most common question, if in case we'll encounter these, are the contraindications. You know this, nurses. If they have metal implants, they cannot go through MRI. So like all that apply, you may encounter this. Those with pacemaker, metal implants, knee prosthesis came out already before. Vascular clips came out before, okay? Defibrillator also came out before, so like all that apply. So any of this, that if the patient has this on their body, they are a good candidate for MRI. Another that came out in NCLEX was this. The patient is to undergo MRI. Okay, but no. Let me paraphrase it. The patient is a 27. The patient who is a 27-year-old female is to undergo MRI. Which among the following question is the most important to ask? I'm paraphrasing it. I'll give you a tip. When you encounter in NCLEX, gender and age, it's a hint. There is a purpose why they needed to mention that the patient is a female. And in this case, the reason why is because if this patient is pregnant, you know for the fact that they cannot be exposed to MRI because it can cause damage to the fetus. But what question is this, Mr. Arado, that is important for you to ask to this patient? The answer was, when was your last menstrual period? It is asking indirect question if the patient is what? Pregnant. Because you don't ask direct questions. Are you pregnant? That's maybe too invasive. So you ask it in a more professional way by asking, when was your last menstrual period? Okay. And of course, assess for claustrophobia. If they are claustrophobic, they can still undergo MRI, but they have to receive anti-anxiety medication. Anti-anxiety medication. The only health teaching you will tell your patient is to remain still. There's no any other, instruction except that. Okay, that's for MRI. Okay, let's move forward. Another one is EEG. Now we have different kind of this. We have EMG, we have ECG, we have EEG. Okay. What are the similarities? All of this EEG, EMG, ECG, all of these three evaluates electrical activity. However, for EEG, we are talking about specifically of the brain. You don't have to memorize the descriptions in my handouts and in other NCLEX resources. Trust me, you will not be asked about the description, but you know that EEG is for this. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say, but you don't need to memorize them. What you may probably encounter in NCLEX is how are you going to prepare a patient for EEG? First, okay, wash the client's hair to remove oil and dirt, and I'll tell you why later. Well, the answer is right next, so that the electrode can properly attach to the head. Because if these hairs are with oils, it's going to be very hard for the electrodes to attach. And if there is no good attachment of electrodes to the scalp and to the head, so more likely you will get a false reading. Next question, Mr. Arado, are we gonna place the patient on NPO? Not really. In fact, they can eat breakfast, in the morning. So NPO is not a requirement. However, what you would need to tell the patient is to withhold all stimulants. Why? Because stimulants affects brain activity. If they will consume fluids or food that is a stimulant to the brain, you will get a false reading. So what are those stimulants that possibly you may encounter? Okay, all of those with caffeine, coffee, tea, and other caffeinated beverages should be withheld. And even medications such as antidepressants or anticonvulsants for 24 to 48 hours. Because antidepressants, yes, it is not a stimulant, but it is a downer. Okay, don't be confused. Antidepressants and anticonvulsants are not stimulants, but they are a downer, meaning they can depress the function of the brain. So in short, nurses, both stimulants and downers must be withheld, because otherwise you will get a wrong reading. So, but if the patient appears to be anxious, the doctor might give or may give a minimal dosage of sedatives just to calm the patient down, but not enough to change and alter the electrical activity of the brain. But in general concept, they should not be receiving any of the stimulants or downers that can greatly affect the activities of the brain. Now, after the procedure, you have to wash the client's hair because of the gel that they will, put on the electrodes to wash it off, and then maintain safety precaution, of course, side rails. Okay, but of course, you need doctor's order for that. That's for the EEG.